Hey everyone, welcome back to this week of Refuge. We are so excited that you're here this week joining with us. We hope your Christmas break was wonderful. We know that this year was a little bit different and kind of uncomfortable compared to years before, but we still hope that you were able to see your family on Zoom and feel the love and peace and joy that comes with the Christmas season. We started a new series here called The Missing Pieces, and this week is week 2 of that series. So if you haven't seen the one before, we would encourage you to go back and take a peek at that one. Now, we have a new giveaway coming this month, so stay tuned on our social medias for that announcement. Now we're gonna get into some worship, and then we're gonna head into our sermon with Wade, so make sure you're sticking around for that.
Oh, la da di da 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 da, oh, la da di da da, oh, la da di da 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 da, oh, la da di da da. Spirit fall down, start a holy riot. Fill this place now with the tongues of fire. Break the strongholds, come and unleash heaven. Burn within us, make us bold as lions. This is our revival anthem. Can you feel the darkness shaking? Oh, we are the dry bones rising. This will be our great awakening. This is our revival anthem. La da di da 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 da, oh, la da di da da. Fill our hearts, Lord, with the holy danger. Lead us beyond our fear of failure. We'll fight the good fight, in strength and power. We'll take back the night, victory is ours. This is our revival anthem. Can you feel the darkness shaking? Oh, we are the dry bones rising. This will be our great awakening. This is our revival anthem. La da di da 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 da, oh, la da di da da da. We'll praise you when our hearts are breaking. Praise you when our world is caving. We will not be moved. We will praise you till we see your kingdom. Greater things are surely coming. You are God, you are on the move. You are on the move. This is our revival anthem. Can you feel the darkness shaking? Oh, we are the dry bones rising. This will be our great awakening. This is our revival anthem. This will be our great awakening. This is our revival anthem. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, long just to bring something that's of worth, that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart.
Hello, Refuge student community. My name is Wade, and I'm one of the people that helps lead our Refuge community. Thanks for tuning in to this week's online gathering. Whether you watch every week or this is your first time, I'm excited that you're here. If you're watching live and you haven't had a chance to do so, why don't you type hey or hello in the chat? We're going to be talking about some different things today regarding the Bible, God, and you, and how it all fits together. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Our Refuge Leader team is here for you, no matter where you're at. If you would like us to pray for you, let us know. If there is something going on in your life that you would like us to support you in, we are here. Just reach out and we will connect back with you. COVID might have you thinking that you're all alone, but you are not. You can email us at refuge@heartlandalliance.ca or DM any of our social media accounts. Or if you're watching live, you can talk to our service host privately by clicking the Request Prayer button. We are in week 2 of a series called The Missing Pieces. This series is looking at a specific part of Jesus' teaching that focused on community and what Jesus' vision for community was. As we look around at the different community that we find ourselves a part of, I think we can safely say that whether it is our friends, our families, our school, or our church, there are different pieces that seem to be missing that prevent our community from really thriving. Well, Jesus has given us characteristics or heart positions that when we point our attention to these things, we will see a community that thrives unlike any other. Isn't that something that you would want to be part of? I know I, for one, am tired of seeing people around us rip each other apart and tear apart instead of building up. I would rather find some community that brings people together rather than creating more hostility between people. Wouldn't it excite you to help build that? Last week, I did a brief introduction to this part of Jesus' teaching that is found in the book of Matthew. There are 4 books in the Bible that specifically tell the story of Jesus while he was here on earth. They are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We call them the Gospels. Matthew was one of Jesus' closest followers, and he records a summary of Jesus' teachings called the Sermon on the Mount in chapters 5 to 7 of his book. The Sermon on the Mount is probably the best known part of the teachings of Jesus. It is Jesus' own description of what he wanted his followers to be and to do. As we talked about last week, the first part of Jesus' teaching is a section called the Beatitudes. Want to find a thriving community? Well, look at the 8 pieces taught by Jesus in the Beatitudes. Let's read it together. If you have a Bible or a Bible app, you can turn to the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 1 to 12. And if you're watching live, then go ahead and use the Bible tab at the bottom of your screen. But let's read together. We're going to go Matthew 5. We'll just start at verse 1 here. And it says, "Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." That's the Beatitudes. So let's talk about a few things regarding the Beatitudes. Do you know what the word beatitude means? If you're watching live with us today, then write what you think the word beatitude means. And I'll give you a few seconds to do that while I talk about a few other things. Before we can go too deep into looking at any one beatitude separately, we should just note a few things about them as a group. These pieces of community that Jesus is describing are not intended to be broken up into smaller pieces. It's not a, you get these characteristics and I get the other ones. You are not a peacemaker and I'm not pure in heart, while someone else is poor in spirit. They are rather equalities of the same group who at one and the same time are meek and merciful, poor in spirit, and pure in heart, mourning and hungry, peacemakers and persecuted. All these characteristics that Jesus gives us are to be displayed by all those who follow him. They are not reserved for some tiny group of elite Christians, but instead they are meant to be the trademark of Jesus' community here on earth. I should also mention that at this point, to be a follower of Jesus means that you believe in Jesus. You believe he came to the earth, both fully God and fully human. He lived on earth until he died on a cross. He was physically dead until 3 days later he rose again. A short time after his resurrection, he went back to heaven, where he continues to support his followers and prepares an eternal place for them called heaven. Being a follower of Jesus means you have faith in Jesus that he did all this for you. He did it because our relationship with God the Father was broken, and a sacrifice needed to be made for all the wrongdoings of humanity. Jesus was that one-time sacrifice for all humanity. He did it out of unconditional love for all people. The way to God is through being a follower of Jesus, meaning that you believe what he did, you desire him to lead your life, and you are willing to follow him with how you live your life. Which circles me back to the Beatitudes. These 8 characteristics are not a checklist to get into heaven. If I do them, then God will accept me and love me. No, on the contrary, God loves you and has shown this by sending his son Jesus. These 8 characteristics are for the followers of Jesus to display, because when his followers collectively shine these 8 characteristics, they point an arrow directly to Jesus. They do this because when these 8 characteristics are collectively shining for all to see, they show a picture of what a thriving community looks like. And if I can be so bold to say, it is only in Jesus that this community that we all inherently desire to have can be found. Who is Jesus to you? Might be a fair question to ask. Do you have some questions about him that our Refuge leader team can help you out with? Please don't hesitate to ask. I think another place we should pause for a moment is to address all of us who have called ourselves followers of Jesus for some time now. When Jesus taught the Beatitudes to the crowd that was following him, there was a group of religious leaders who were also listening, and they thought they had the God thing all figured out. But they did not. They had significant missing pieces of the picture that Jesus wanted his disciples to display. We can't assume that we have it all figured out either. Our world around us desperately needs a thriving community that is marked by the values that Jesus is teaching in the Beatitudes. And I think we all have some missing pieces that we are currently not following Jesus on. And as we travel over the next several weeks exploring these pieces one by one, we need to look in the mirror and see what is missing from our own hearts. While circling back, do you have some thoughts on what the word beatitude means? The word beatitude comes from the Latin word beatus, which simply means bless or bliss. And as we read earlier, each one of the Beatitudes begins with the word blessed. What does it mean to be blessed or blessed? Well, blessed means basically to be happy. In ancient literature, the word was at times used of people or gods who were unaffected by poverty, disease, misfortune, and death. In the Bible, it is often used of God, who is a truly happy one, and humanity can only receive this blessing, this divine happiness from God, who desires each person to have his divine joy. This kind of happy is more than an emotion that can change day to day or even hour to hour, depending on my mood. This kind of happiness can come only from God. It is an inner joy that is consistent through whatever comes at you in life. It is fueled by God, and it inspires others to know Him through you. When it comes to the Beatitudes, blessed are those who are happy, are those who are joy-filled, are those who are. The Beatitudes teach us that the joy-filled life is found only in God, and other things we try to find happiness in, apart from God, are fleeting and temporary. It is only in Jesus that we find true happiness. With this in mind, let's look for a moment at the first Beatitude, because it really helps to sum up the position our hearts need to be in to receive what we have been talking about. The first Beatitude is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God." If you travel through the Bible and do a study of the word poor, then this first Beatitude makes a lot of sense. In the early part of the Bible, the word poor was meant to be taken literally. It was about someone who had material need. And those people who were in material poverty were to be cared for by the people of God. This hasn't changed today. God cares about poverty and desires His people to very much look around them and address those needs in our society. But material poverty is not what this beatitude is referring to. Because as you study the progression of the word poor through the Bible, it begins to take on a spiritual identification. Poor in spirit is to acknowledge our spiritual poverty, our spiritual neediness before God. This is the language of the poor in spirit. The language says, "For we have wronged God. We deserve His holy wrath and His judgment. We have nothing to offer, nothing to plead, nothing with which to buy favor from God or to earn our way to heaven." Only these people enter the kingdom of God. Only these people are part of the community of Jesus. Now, poor in spirit does not mean we think we are worthless, for that wouldn't be true either. All people are created in God's image and therefore have unimaginable worth. Rather, it refers to an awareness or an admission of one's utter need for God. It is the position of humility, pride completely undone. Therefore, simply put, poor in spirit is to humble myself to a position where I can acknowledge I need God. Author John Stott writes this. He says, right at the beginning of his Sermon on the Mount, Jesus contradicted all human judgments and all nationalistic expectations of the community of God. The community is to be given to the poor, not the rich, the feeble, not the mighty, to little children humble enough to accept it, not to soldiers who boast that they can obtain it by their own prowess. In Jesus' day, it was not the religious leaders who entered this community, who thought they were so rich, nor the zealots who'd dreamed of establishing this community by blood and sword, but the rejects of human society, who knew they were so poor they could offer nothing and achieve nothing. All they could do was to cry to God for mercy, and He heard their cry. Poor in spirit is the position we find ourselves as we receive Jesus and put our faith in Him. It is also the starting point as a follower of Jesus for a thriving community. You will not experience the fullness of this thriving community without taking this humble position. There is no pushing your way to the top, not earning your way to a higher level. It is not about positioning yourself as better than another or making yourself look good by putting someone else down. Poor in spirit is to humble myself to a position where I can acknowledge I need God. In the community of Jesus, we are all one under Jesus. In the community of Jesus, we are all poor and needing Jesus. In the community of Jesus, you are not more important than me or vice versa. When you come into the community of Jesus, you must check your pride, your position, and your power at the door. To me, this sounds really refreshing and really needed. I don't know what you think, but are you poor in spirit? Have you taken a humble position before God, acknowledging your need for Him? These are good questions to take some time to think about this week. I know for me, if poor in spirit is to humble myself to a position where I can acknowledge I need God, then I know personally I am easily impressed with myself, and I can easily leave God out of the equation. So it becomes a daily journey of saying, God, I need you. God, help me. God, help me to find a position of humility with you and everyone else that I come in contact with today. What about you? What are some helpful ways that you can stay in this position of humility with God? How about asking questions like, when I make a decision, do I ask God for help? When I start my day, do I look to God to help position my heart right for what is ahead? What about doing things that tune your heart to God? Things like praying regularly, reading the Bible, talking with others about God, being in community with your small group. What about living out the community values that Jesus has given us? Simple but profound things like not thinking about yourself as better than others, being kind, forgiving, helpful, and the list goes on. And in the coming weeks, we will expand this list more and more to help understand what are the missing pieces of Jesus' community we have in our own lives and in our refuge community, and what can we do to put them in place. As we close, I just want to remind you that if you have questions, if you want prayer and need some support, please don't hesitate to connect with us. You can email us at refuge@heartlandalliance.ca, or again, DM any of our social media accounts. And if you're watching live, our chat will stay open after the service ends if you want to keep talking, or you can request prayer. Well, I hope, Refuge community, that you have a great week. That's all from me, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for being here and tuning into our service this week. If you have any questions or prayer requests or just want to chat with us, we have a bunch of different ways that you can connect with us. There's going to be some links that are going to pop up, but we have Instagram and Facebook and an email, which is refuge@heartlandalliance.ca. Wherever you're watching this from, you're able to access our service on IGTV, on YouTube, and on our brand new live platform on Saturday nights at 7. We really hope you're able to tune in one of those ways. We were so glad you were here, and we'll see you next week.